Hello and welcome back. I'm Jordan, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 bad things for GMs to do. Got myself a little list here. I'm actually starting to run out of post-it notes, so that's a problem for future Jordan to take care of. But I'm going to start off with number 1, taking away player agency. If you're a GM and you want this story to be very strictly followed, with basically no distractions, no like side quests or anything like that, you're taking away the player's agency. Obviously, some story stuff does need to be followed in order for the main story to actually take place. That's a given. There are other ways to do that. Maybe they go down a side quest where, maybe that leads back round into the story. I can't give any specific examples for this one because the game I'm currently running has some of those going on, so I'm not gonna, as in case my players watch this, I am not gonna be saying any sort of like tips or tricks for that one, sadly. Yeah, a DM who does this is basically if you want this, if you're a DM who does this, go write a book. That's the best case scenario for you right there. But to give a little bit more of a description on what this kind of DM does, this kind of DM or GM, depends on what kind of system you're running, is the kind of DM will basically go, okay, you rolled blah blah blah, doesn't matter. This thing happens regardless of what you do. That's the kind of vibe you get from this kind of DM. It's not a great mentality to have as a DM. I have done it in the past, like when I was very, very new starting out as a DM. I will admit I did do it because I needed the story to progress, but I obviously learnt and grew and developed into the DM I am now. Again, not perfect, no one is. But yeah, finding other ways of leading them back into the story, preferably ones that make sense, would be better. Again, I'm hearing crackings in my house. Anyway, on to number 2, treating players unequally. Again, I am 100% guilty of this. I have done it before, and I still do it every so often, accidentally. I don't mean to do it, and I don't reckon any other DM is trying to do it either. But treating players unequally, and that means things like, one or two players get all the loot and stuff like that, they get the best stuff, they get the best items and blah blah blah. Or it could mean that the campaign is almost like they're following one particular player, or maybe 2 or even 3, and the other players are left as background characters essentially. A good way of doing this is setting up your own little timer as a DM. Like, okay, this person gets this, like roughly this amount of time, and so on and so forth, depending on how many players you've got. The more players you've got, the harder it is to do, so try and stick to something a bit more manageable. That would be my best advice. I actually do set timers for like how much of a session I've given to like one particular player. If it is like a campaign arc, or like a character arc rather, then yes, that player is going to get a little bit more time, and that's something other players need to like understand and kind of get, and obviously they'll have their time within those sessions. But if it is a character arc for a specific player, that can be the effect that you'll end up with. You'll end up with one player getting more attention than the others, and then sometimes they'll feel left out. That is something that is inevitably going to happen, but there are ways to mitigate it. As I said, with the timer, with the individual timers, that is one way of doing it. But at the same time, always remembering that everyone there is there for a fun time. So you need to allocate time for everyone. On to number 3. A DM who rejects feedback. I can safely say I am not one of these. Anytime I actually ask my players for feedback after pretty much every session. I always ask, hey, how did you guys feel about that? How was it? Like, what in your minds could be better? And it's like, yeah, what was fun about it? What was a bit meh about it? For me personally, I want every moment in the campaign to feel like they've done something, like they've progressed, even if it's like just a shopping spree episode or session. Sorry, I call them episodes because we record it. But yeah, a DM who rejects feedback, or like says like, I don't want feedback, yeah, that kind of GM is not going to be good for the group, like at all. And plus, remember, you can always leave the group and go find a different DM or a different party. Might be a little bit more difficult, but there are other parties out there that need other players. And if you keep having to jump from party to party, maybe it's not something on the DM's fault. You never know. Number 4, becoming the player's enemy, or rather the character's enemy. Do not become the main story's villain. Always try and make sure that the villain is something that can't be confused for you. Basically, don't give off the vibe that the players are against you as the DM. You are there for fun as well. Don't make a game where it's like, oh, you have to defeat my big bad guy and stuff like that. It's like, no, you want to defeat the bad guys, not my bad guys. That's another way of like not making the players see you as the bad person or you as the bad player. But if a DM is doing this on purpose, or maybe not on purpose, but if you find as players, if you find yourself thinking that this DM is a bit of a bad guy sort of thing, like try and find another group. If not, have a talk with that DM. Hopefully they are understanding and listening and actually taking feedback, so that's always a good thing. But yeah, as a DM, you never want to portray the bad guy as like a version of yourself. That is something that can lead to a lot of player arguments and players leaving, obviously. But at the end of the day, try and make sure you keep that balance and keep reminding your players that you are not the bad guy, this person is. Like this, whoever your BBEG is, or Big Bad Evil Guy, or Big Bad Evil Girl, whichever. Stands for both. Number 5 is the Raw GM RWA, or known as the Rules as Written DM. There is nothing inherently wrong with this one, especially if you've got a party that like to play Rules as Written as well. But the big problem that Rules as Written DMs and players kind of like face is that with all the rules bogging down everything, there's no real room for story. And me personally, I like to focus more on story than I do rules. I will rule of cool whenever I feel it necessary, especially if I don't want to go looking for 15-20 minutes like the rule for this the most obscure crap ever. Like I don't want to be wasting my time or the player's time searching up rules that in reality don't actually matter, especially if it's something like a specific spell or something along those lines. Trust your players. They have the cards in front of them with them, or they'll have it on their D&D Beyond or whatever system you're using. They should always have notes on what their spells do and what they can do, like the range components, and if they're verbal, somatic, action, reaction, bonus action, all the rest of it. They should know that. You as a DM, you shouldn't need to look up their spells all the time. That's something for the players. Yeah, saying I'm going to rule of cool this is not a bad thing. I do it all the time. It actually makes for a much more fun game, I must admit. And finally, number 6, we have the timid / yes GM, or DM, whatever. This DM is a little bit of a problem because of a couple of reasons mainly. For the first reason, it's mostly because if you're constantly saying yes to anything, like literally anything and everything that the players want to do, then why are you playing a dice game? A game where your decisions are dictated by what this says. I like how I pick up Player Killer. And yes, this has literally been named Player Killer because I've killed plenty of players with this specific dice. This one's in permanent dice jail. Yeah, a DM who is constantly saying yes. I can see the appeal in it, especially if like you're intimidated by it. It's like if it's your first game or anything like that, then saying yes could be like feel a lot easier than just saying no, sort of thing. Like in case someone like comes back at you and sort of thing. I was this DM for my first couple of games. I didn't want to disappoint the players. I didn't want to upset them, make them sad or anything like that, so I just said yes to any crazy crap they said. That was a mistake, because that means that actions did not have consequences. And in D&D, actions should always have consequences, especially if they're bad, but good actions can sometimes lead to bad consequences depending on like different scenarios and stuff going on in your world. Say saving someone means that that person grows up and becomes like an evil person or something like that, or saving that person means that they go set fire to more places and you didn't know that they were the original arson of this like manor house or something. It can lead to a few more problems, but yeah. Being an SGM, or even being a fully no GM all the time, if you're constantly saying no to the players, that's a problem. Why are you playing a game that's meant to be fun in the first place? If you're constantly saying no. Say yes to more things. If you're a no GM. Yeah, a timid / yes GM, yeah, not really the best for a fantasy RPG role-playing game. If you're playing fantasy, you can also play sci-fi and things like that. Okie dokie, I think that's enough of my ramblings today. Sorry, I thought I'd knock on that window. Anyway, that is enough of my ramblings for today. If you like this video, please make sure you leave a like, favourite, comment and subscribe, and I will of course catch you all in the next one. Peace, bye, love you guys.